in EJEP Creative. Right out of college, I went to work for Ross Perot Sr. at EDS in a strict finance and accounting executive training role. And my creativity was dying. So I moved on and went to retail, and that has just been a love ever since. And now into entertainment because I think I get to use both sides of my brain.
Oh, I love it. And I did not know you were a cowgirl. I'm a recovering cowgirl. You know that,
Yeah,
right?
I used to barrel race.
So I did when I was little, and then I started doing rodeo and doing team roping. So that was my little world for till just kind of recently. I sold everything, sold my little ranch, and don't have horses or cattle or anything anymore. So now that I know that about you, woo, that's awesome.
I know, it's a fun life.
Where did you go to college, Wanda?
So I went to University of Nebraska, majored in finance, and then was recruited off campus there straight to Dallas, Texas. The first time I've lived in Dallas twice in my career, moved around a lot. But yeah, loved living in Dallas.
So what are some of your current pastimes or hobbies that you engage in?
I have quite a few. I have to work them in. So I love to travel the world. Like one of my favorite cities in the world is Rome and Paris. I'm just a student of the game. So I love just looking for trends. I sit in, hotel lobbies and restaurants. I study people and cultures and just see where the consumers are moving because I think it just helps me in all of my creative work, right? We try new restaurants. I'm married to a celebrity chef, so I do eat a lot. We recently ate at Arpège in Paris, which is the number 23 restaurant in the world, and it was delicious. If you get to Paris, I'm happy to connect you.
Okay.
And then I spend a lot of time just giving back to the community. I've always believed in we are all very successful executives, and we need to give back. So over my time, I focused a lot of my energy early on in the arts organizations because when I worked at Neiman Marcus in Dallas as the CMO, Stanley Marcus really believed in arts organizations. The arts were being taken out of the public school system.
Right.
So how do we create programs and resources to educate that critical piece of education that students were missing? And then most recently, I joined the Human Rights, Holocaust and Human Rights Museum in Dallas, Texas, that supports just all sorts of human rights across all spectrums, which is also a desperate need in these days and times that we are living in.
When you do that, how do you participate? Like what something calls to you? What makes you go there? And then what do you do? How do you lend your expertise there?
Yeah, so in the arts community, I would say I've raised millions of dollars. So I throw fundraisers. I led for when I was on the TACA board, which is an umbrella board that manages and gives funds to all the performing arts in Dallas. So dance and art galleries and theaters, and we give funding for them to put on different productions and all of those things. So I do a lot of fundraising. I led the 50th anniversary of that. I commissioned my own worldwide premiere dance. We raised several $1 million that gets put back into the community. So, Human Rights and Holocaust Museum, I just got on the board meeting. And it's been a great organization too. So
I love knowing that. And it's, there's a lot of people on here that I know are part of other nonprofits. And like with us, I go, we're not curing cancer. We're not, saving puppies, but, each nonprofit has something important that it's always nice to know kind of where your heart goes. And, it makes you interesting, right?
Yeah.
Look at my questions. So what books have you read? Are you a reader?
I'm a reader periodically. I read when I'm on vacation. I've just most recently downloaded Blinkist, if you guys have heard of it. So you can, on my drive home, it summarizes all the top business books in 20 minutes. So I highly recommend it. You can get through a lot of stuff that you see in those airports that you're like, oh, I should read that book on leadership, or I should read that book on customer relationships, but when will I have time?
And
Uh,
it's called what?
it's called Blinkist. It's a
Okay.
shortcut. It's an app. You can subscribe to it. You can download tons of books, and they give you the summaries of them. And then, but one book I recently read was, just kind of being around my husband who's in the restaurant business, and we were just thinking through going through our rebrand at Cinemark, and really just thinking through the customer journey and how do we make more heroic service and some of the different initiatives that we're working on. And it's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Gradera. So he was the general manager, if you've ever heard of 11 Madison Park in New York City, which is one of the top restaurants in the world. And it just talks about how they gave customers more than what was expected in service, hence the unreasonable hospitality. How can you just think through every single detail of the customer journey and solve a pain point and be a step ahead of the customer? And just what it took time and time again when they kept trying to get their rankings increased to pursue that excellence and to be the best restaurant in the world. And, not all of those things we can afford to do in our businesses, right, at our margins and all of those things, but it's the thought process, and it's the skill of just constantly going after it and trying to just improve a little bit every day. So it was just, I found it really inspiring, and it made me rethink some of the things we do in our business.
I love it. And I mean, coming from working in food service, my last career in Texas, I fully believe a customer just wants to have a good time when they're out and figure out a way to give them that, right?
Right.
So on your career, what would you say is your proudest accomplishment?
I would have to take that to a personal level and say it's, raising my daughter as a single parent and a C-suite executive with a high pressure job. Not been easy to balance that, right? And then trying to stay in a particular city after they get a particular age, because you don't want to switch schools, right?
Yeah.
But yet you still want to progress your career. So she's now 21, attending Vanderbilt in Nashville. She'll be a senior this year. She's really driven and hardworking leader herself throughout her school years. And she just recently had me be interviewed by one of her classes at Vanderbilt on women in leadership. And it was this Army woman who, the professor who rose in the ranks of women leadership. So I was super intimidated. I'm like, what can I teach her about leadership, right? Anyway, I spoke to this class, and it was just really interesting hearing from my daughter's perspective, the impact that I've had on her and what she wants to do in her life. And it just really made all the hard times and all that balancing really worthwhile.
And are you a mother-daughter that sometimes would like to forget that you have a child? Because I'm a mother-daughter and I love my daughter to death, but there's times I'd like to kill her.
Well, she has her moments, but we're best friends most of the time.
That's awesome. Is there anything in your career you wish you could do over?
It's a tough one. Well, marriage to my first husband, however, I wouldn't have my amazing daughter, so I guess I won't count that. But you probably
That's what Chris Aronson had to say too, by the way.
Yeah, probably meant professionally. So I think at many points in my career, there's always been forks in the road. You get called from a recruiter and you're like, could I go do this or could I go do that? I went from one large company to go to San Francisco to do a startup. I've done every kind of job. I've been a CEO. I've been a startup of a .com. I've done head of merchandising. I've just done all sorts of roles. But I think at all those decisions, no matter which fork I would have taken, I've always learned something. So to me, it's just important to keep growing and learning. So I don't really have any regrets. Could have something turned out differently on a different path? Yes. Would have that other path may have had more roadblocks or less roadblocks? I don't know. But we can't live for yesterday. We got to just keep moving forward.
I love it. This question was actually going to come a few more down, but I think it's a perfect time to ask it. What would you say to 16-year-old Wanda?
Don't be afraid to take risks. I do a lot more of that as I progressed in my career. I had a really great job at Limited Brands in Columbus, Ohio. And this recruiter had been there for 8 years and got promoted around the different divisions back then when they owned everyone in the mall, Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, like 7 different titles. But a recruiter called me and said, would you want to go work at a startup in San Francisco? And I'm like, God, I've done this $8 billion company thing. Maybe a startup sounds good. So I jumped in and took the dream. I mean, it took me a while in my career to get to that, right? That I would take those chances. And then my second big piece of advice, and I talked about this in the leadership class at Vanderbilt to the students, is I think one of the most important things when you're young, especially your first 10 years out of school, is find a good boss, not a good job. There's a huge distinction in that. And it's really important because you need a mentor or someone who's interested in helping you grow, not just you giving to the company and them not giving back.
I honestly, the boss that I have now is the best boss I've ever had. And I always go, that's my boss. I'm so impressed with him that he can bark at me and yell at me and hustle me and like expect a lot of me, but he leads by example. And it's not something that you think about until you really get one, or if you have a really crappy one.
Yep. Right. And, I've tried to learn from I've had good bosses and I've had probably not as great of bosses in my career. And I've just tried to take pieces from all that's learning, right? So I tried to take the things I didn't like and the things I did like, and I tried to, over the years, morph those into how I lead.
Okay, so what are 3 words that describe you?
Well, what do we think they are? I think driven, probably passionate, dedicated, people orientated.
Love it. Is there anything that you would kind of recall that you think is like the worst thing somebody's ever said to you? Because sometimes it might be worse at the time, but it encouraged you later.
I really don't like the word no. That was a surprise. Okay. So when I like to do something or think I have a great idea, I'm like, I'm willing to take the risk and the reward, right? But I really would just like to try it.
I love it. So how would you say that you've changed over the past year?
For me, it's probably been the last couple years of change. I've gone through a lot. So I became an empty nester. Right. But becoming an empty nester in COVID is another thing, because then you're even more isolated, right?
Yep.
I got remarried during all of that time, and we still stayed married, even though we had to be together all the time in COVID. So I found myself working a lot. And so it was just getting back to needing to reset and get more work-life balance. It's kind of what I
work-life balance. I think that's something that we would like to kind of host as a work-life balance, like seminar, webinar, something of that nature. Well, let's kind of get to your current roles. Let's talk a little bit about what you did before Cinemark and then what you're doing for Cinemark. So you came from retail. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your life in retail and how you've applied that to your roles at Cinemark.
It's Heather Blair. She's doing a women in exhibition meeting. She invited me to. And
mute him. Sorry.
Okay.
Rob,
unless someone has a question already.
No, that's Rob.
All right. So I worked at Neiman Marcus Group for about 8 years in Dallas as the chief marketing officer. And I was brought in there really to, in the depths of the recession when luxury in 2008 and 2009, luxury was cratering because the world economy was terrible. And so we had like negative 30 comps. And so they brought me in to really create a structure of consolidating the marketing departments from all the different divisions. So it was different Neiman's.com, Neiman Stores, Bergdorf, Horchow, a bunch of different brands. So anyway, I basically took all those skills from that job and what omni-channel retailer, how they look at a business with an e-commerce platform. We had over $1 billion e-commerce platform. and just really took that skill set and drove a digital transformation in Cinemark. So trying to get us to get people to buy tickets ahead of time and really perfecting and getting rid of the friction on the website and then the mobile app and thinking through. So that's the first thing I kind of tackled is, well, we need to get e-commerce up and running because we need the people to buy the ticket before they make a decision on Friday night to do something else, right?
Yeah.
So it's trying to get it earlier. And then from there, creating that vehicle and way to continuously talk to them and talk to them about the experience and to drive them into movie goings, and then integrate and work with our studio partners on all of their marketing initiatives and how does our loyalty programs and our e-commerce platforms and all of our data and information that we know kind of create more synergy to get more people to drive to movies. And then a second thing coming from high-end retail, I think about and how it applies to this industry is we really live an experiential economy. And, this is one thing where I don't think people come just to go see a movie. I think seeing a movie and some other job they're trying to do are equivalent. I may be different.
It's evolved over time. Like it's our entertainment. Yeah.
It's our entertainment. So I think people want, to think about that experience. So we've just been collaborating through all of our different department members and really kind of strategizing and thinking this through. And how do we as a team make it through all of our different disciplines, whether it's ops or whether it's theater technology or theater design? How do we make it a whole evening out as an experience, not just going to see a movie? Because you're really trying to make a connection and get out of the house, which is especially even more important now after streaming and COVID, is get out of the house and have a great time. But how do you relax in that space? And how does that space and how did the offerings that we have make you feel like, wow, that was amazing. I had an amazing time with my family. We had some Instagram moments. We had, all of those great things. And we saw a great movie and we could talk about it and we had a great time. So
now, do you guys go talk to your customers and get them feedback, or how do you kind of change what you're doing? Yeah.
So we've gone through a whole rebrand and we did a lot of extensive research in the beginning right before COVID. And then I picked it back up probably in the end of 21. And we've really we went through a whole rebrand of our brand of trying to get that energy back and in the nomenclature and how we talk to our customers and the things we're talking about and what makes movie going so emotional, trying to create more of that emotional connection. We still have a lot more work to do on that end. But so instead of just talking about the movies, talk about the experience at a deeper level. And then we just recently finished some more research to just talk about what job is a movie theater trying to do. So when you think about going to the movies, going to the movies versus going out to dinner versus going to a concert, what things are we doing well for whatever job you're trying to get us to do for you? And what aren't we? And then how do we all work as a cross-functional team to really think that out? And I do have to say, coming out of COVID, I think it's made, and I think it's one of the successes of Cinemark, is I think it's made us fire on all cylinders. All of our business partners, all of my peers across all the functions, we really want to work together to solve these issues. I think when you're put in COVID and you're in that, we're all shut down, how do we get out of this moment? It just builds better teamwork and has broken walls down. And I know it's made a huge difference in our ability to execute and how we all work together and want the best end thing for the customer.
Because that's funny. My question was going to ask you, how has the pandemic affected your decisions? And you're really answering that question before I asked it. Yeah. Do you pull like all the different divisions within Cinemark to kind of come together and help you in marketing? How do you kind of establish what you're doing with technology and all the different aspects?
Yeah, we do. I think in the beginning, it was probably like, who is she and what's she doing? What's she working on and all these things? And why is she interested in our area? But I honestly think, again, out of COVID, that's one of the things that came out when we were working on clean and safety. One of our operations leaders came over and he's like, I understand now, like you really want the best for the customer experience. And I'm like, yeah, I sort of see myself as like a chief customer officer. I want what's best for the customer and work cross-functionally, because we all want what's best for the customer, right?
Yeah.
Of how do we make that a great experience?
And since the studios were kind of going off and doing the streaming at the same time, did you have any input in helping them kind of write that course and come back to working with exhibition first?
I think the results help them. Right.
Yeah. The irony of that was a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, darling Jackie from NATO had done this whole report, and she tried to share it with the studios, and they weren't listening. And she was like on a rooftop saying, you just make more money when you have a nice theatrical window. And it's like, they figured that out now.
Yeah, I think they figured out it eventizes. Movie stars become movie stars because they've eventized a movie. They can make more downstream in the revenue stream. I think, as in change, sometimes people, just like we all did, people have to work through change, right? They have to live through it a little. And sometimes it's painful. And out of all that chaos comes out a better formula, I think, for all of us.
What made you decide to do a rebrand for Cinemark?
We had not touched any of our creative or our logo. I think our logo hadn't been updated in maybe 20, 30 years. And so, so we really needed a refresh when we started doing theater visits and looking. A lot of it was old and dated. And I think we just wanted it to be, more energetic and fun and to give that energy of going to the movie. So it was time. Every brand needs to evolve. Most brands try to change that out probably every 8 to 10 years, if not sooner.
It's a big deal. Now, since you're the chief content officer as well, now your job has gotten much wider. How does those two roles in marketing and content, how do they work together, and what are the biggest challenges between the two of them?
Yeah, I think the two roles work together really well. I think it's creating more and more synergy for us, because before we would deal with the exhibitor marketing relations side of the studios, right? And then I was actually starting to deal with the marketing presidents of marketing of the studios directly too. And then as we built up all of our capabilities, and you have to have credibility, right? And have an offering. And as we did all of those pitches, I think the distribution side realized all the things we were doing and started coming to our meetings too. So it kind of just became a natural evolution. The distribution and the marketing side, on their side, they started restructuring that it's all under one person, right? Because it makes sense, because you have to work together. So we sort of just restructured to mirror what the studios themselves are doing.
Yeah. So is there anything out there that the industry says that you don't agree with? Like the Wanda says this.
I think everyone in exhibition is super united. I think, we're all very passionate about movie going and all of that. I fundamentally believe, I think the whole experience needs to be ratcheted up. We can't rest on our laurels of the way we used to do business, just having a basic theater and showing movies. I think we need all sorts of other stuff going on. We need great food and beverage. We need wine. We need comfortable seats. We need it to be aesthetically relaxing. So I think I think it's the holistic experience. I think it's moved forward a little.
That's funny, because we have a couple of people here that I'm going to hit on. That one of the guys is in the CBD industry, so he's going to ask you about that. What's your take on CBD in theaters? So you can wait to answer that, because Rob is going to be asking that question. And we've got people, logging in from Saudi Arabia, all over the world. They're going to ask some probably interesting questions, and all of them are all about experience. So I think that's kind of cool. What other question would I want to ask? What do you think is going to make the difference in attendance? Do you have a magic pill? What do you think is going to really drive people to come on there, get their butts out of their houses and get into the cinema?
I think it's just, we got to have a consistent slate. We can see all different audiences are coming back, right? So on a few of those key buckets of audiences, they need the consistent content that they're interested in seeing. So we have seen when we measure it through our robust database that as the content's coming back, those people are making more and more trips. So it's not like they're not coming, right? So I think as 2024 rounds out and the flow of content impacts is bigger, I think that somewhat's going to start taking care of itself.
Yeah.
And then I think, you know, on some of those mid-tier films and some of those with the way the studios are re-engineering and the streaming piece and blah, 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 we just have to make sure we have they need a robust marketing campaign in order to, right? And then just focusing again, as I said, on that holistic theater experience. We need carefully curated food and beverages, and we need amazing technology. We need to make it better and more wow, right? Nothing's more cinematic than Cinemark is how we like to say it.
Yeah. I know that you guys were pretty involved with the Cinema Week and Cinema Day. Do you think those kind of campaigns are still essential? Because my perspective, there should be, again, this is just me, having something that regularly reminds the consumer of what's in their cinema, what movies, what content, what food, what experiences, what technology is available to them. So they go, I need to go to the theater because I need to see what's new. Is there anything that Cinemark's doing with any of those type of programs?
You mean in terms of just articulating
consumer enlightenment, like what's going on? So, you know, instead of just saying, hey, come to the movie, is there any sort of program that you guys are working on or that's really just telling the consumer what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of our loyalty programs and subscription programs and all of that, and we have a robust communication. We built a machine. So we're constantly talking to customers about what's coming. We use a lot of personalization algorithms to recommend based on things they've seen, whether it's particular genres or actors or all of those things. Well, I think we have to make those recommendations more personalized and relevant, right? So it feels more authentic and we're not just blasting them so we can capture their attention. So there's a lot of work that I think many exhibitors are doing in that area to really keep customers informed.
Hyper personalized. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last question before we get to the 20 rounds and then we open it up to our audience is, how do you feel the relationship between you as an exhibitor with the studio? Is it getting better? You know, this position working in content, has that sort of brought y'all closer together?
I think it's, you know, obviously it's incredibly important. We all need each other, right? And I think since I've started at Cinemark, we've seen such positive growth. I don't think our marketing side was as robust, and we've been growing that and making all of our capabilities, which, you know, the studios appreciate and can see the difference because we're growing our share, right?
Yeah.
I think we all have the same goal, and we've just been working closely together to get that movie going experience. I do think there's things we can do with our studio partners, like exclusive events, more collaboration, leveraging talent, super tickets. Like once we're getting them on key tent poles to come out, once they arrive at that theater, it'd be great to make them feel like little mini red carpets and do little things, and maybe we charge more for that. So I think there's a lot of different things we can do.
Oh, I love it. All right, we're going to do the round of questions and then we're going to open up the audience. So you ready? Favorite movie?
Oh, let's see, that's tough. I would have to say, based on my prior history, so take that into consideration, A Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Favorite movie snack?
Twizzlers.
Okay.
Everyone knows that. They drop off Twizzlers stuff in my office, and I said my dream before I ever leave Cinemark is to go to the Twizzlers factory. It's
I love it.
I really want to do.
Okay, cool to know. Favorite actor or actress?
I have a lot. I like Liam Neeson, Daniel Day-Lewis, Kate Blanchett, Natalie Portman.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. Rom-com, action, or horror? What's your favorite genre?
Everyone laughs at work. They know it's not horror. So a mix of rom-coms and action, probably. I'll watch a good rom-com with my daughter, and I watch an action flick with my husband.
There you go. Beer, wine, or whiskey?
Oh, wine.
Cool. Dogs or cats? Horses?
Well, cats, I'd have to say. My big black cat, Gumbo, of 18, passed recently.
Oh, Katie's over there. Katie Tricori's up here with her cat in the in the video. Can you see her? Okay. Are you a morning person or a late night person?
Okay, so here's the strange thing, getting remarried to a chef, restaurateur, they're night owls.
Yeah.
So I used to be a morning person, and now he's made me a late night person.
Yeah, I'm all morning. Are you a texting person or email?
Texting. I can't keep up with you.
No? What's your superpower?
There's two I would love to have.
Okay.
Read people's minds and go back in time.
Ooh, okay. I'd like to read people's minds too. What's your favorite city?
Rome.
Okay.
So many amazing restaurants, the people, the culture, the climate.
If you have a favorite holiday?
Traveling anywhere in the world. I love to travel.
Last song you listened to?
I listen to Sirius Radio Coffee House. I love the singer-songwriter. I think the last album on there I listened to was Justin Rutledge.
Okay, do not know that. What is the nickname that your husband calls you?
Honey, when he's in trouble.
I thought that's why our parents gave us a middle name, so you'd know when you're in trouble.
Exactly.
How many languages do you speak?
I have a good understanding of German.
Bitte. Cake or pie?
Pie, but it needs to have vanilla bean ice cream on it.
Ooh, yummy. Do you play chess?
My oldest brother used to play chess in tournaments. So as a child, I had to play a lot of chess, but I do not much anymore.
I don't. Do you sing karaoke? And if so, what's your song?
Never.
Never.
I
Okay.
do not sing karaoke.
We got some karaoke chickies in here, I know. Okay. I wish I had more time in my day to do blank.
Exercise and meditate. I really want to try meditation and make that consistent in my life.
So I'll send you the link to Deepak Chopra's 21-day meditation. It's 10 minutes. I got it from Miriam, who may be on here. It's the easiest way to get yourself into it because it's quick. It's fabulous. And it's a 21-day thing. And it's just,
I can't wait.
Okay. Beach or mountains?
I like both, but probably beach with a good book.
Okay. This is my favorite question I ask everyone. In the movie about Wanda, who plays you?
For years, everyone said that I look like Helen Hunt.
Oh,
and she's a strong woman, so probably Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt. Fabulous. So now we all know a little bit about Wanda, and I'm going to open it up to the audience. I'm going to start with Heather Morgan. Do you have a question for Wanda? To unmute.
Hi there. I love the spontaneous call-ons, Heather. They keep everybody on their toes. I do actually have a question, though. So earlier this year, there was a lot of press coming out about very high-profile women across a number of different industries. The research was mostly focused on tech and politics, but it was talking about how high-ranking women are burning out and they're leaving their roles, and why that's dangerous for a number of different industries. And you were talking a little bit about being a single parent while you had all these high-pressure and high-profile roles. And my question is, what did you do to keep yourself feeling balanced and not burned out, and the continued motivation to keep going and striving for what you wanted?
Great question.
Great question. Many different things. I've tried different things with more success than others. I think one, make sure that you don't lose track of everyone needs a support group, right? All my friends always are like, you have so many different groups of people. I'm like, I have different groups of people that fulfill different parts of me, right? Because we're all composed up of many different people within inside us. So I have support groups that are my fellow, work related that I've worked with in past lives, or fellow professionals I meet through different groups that I join. I have a good group of friends that I raised my daughter with. They're moms of other friends. I have I have all my charity friends that I work on all these boards with. So each of those people give me a different perspective. And as long as I keep myself networking and getting that support, I find that very helpful. Don't go home and be alone, you get depressed. So and then I also try to make sure I work in some self-care, which is difficult when you have to time it all. So I go away to a spa and get a massage, or I do something like that. I try to make myself do that. And you have to take time for yourself, and that is super hard to work-life balance, especially when your kids are young. So there's parts of it where I probably wasn't very good at it at all, and it's journey, right? We all can get better and just learn kind of what works for us and what doesn't.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, I'm going to go ahead and ask for you, Rob.
Hello, Wanda. Hey, I just had a quick question that kind of relates back to alcohol in a little bit. The exhibition industry really waited a long time to fully embrace alcohol sales, and now it's become a pretty large piece of their business. And with cannabis legalization happening across the country, and actually other countries completely legalizing it, has Cinemark done anything to think about the future and how they might incorporate cannabis and consumption at their locations?
I think we've talked about it a little. I don't think we've made a decision. So fortunately, I don't have to make that decision. I'm marketing and content. So so no, but I mean, obviously cannabis is a growing segment. So I think that we'll just continue on with the discussions.
Okay. Rob, put your contact in the chat, and if anybody that's an exhibitor here that wants to just have a conversation, you can reach out to Rob and talk to him about it.
How does everyone else feel about it?
Anybody else have a comment?
Well, I'll just chime in from an Alamo Drafthouse perspective. I know that our F&B team right now is in the process of sampling some of those CBD infused beverages, because it does seem like it would hit a lot of our audience well. I think we're trying to be very cautious about it though, because since we do a good business in alcohol sales and we also protect the movie going experience, we want it to be very, mature and unriled. How do you ensure that someone doesn't combine too much alcohol with your CBD infused and then sort of lose control of themselves or the auditorium environment? So we haven't made a decision yet, but we're considering.
I think that's all we can do is just watch the trends and see how people handle it and maybe test and learn.
I think the legalities of it are going to be a big difference as well, because alcohol laws have been so set out for so long. Yes, it took exhibition a very long time to embrace that model, but the laws were already in place. And even the ones that might have been a little stricter on theaters than they might be in a regular bar are still pretty clear. There's still so many differences across states and even across cities and counties with CBD that it's very difficult to know where you could and could not actually put that into place.
Excellent. All right, let's keep it going. I'm going to go pop on to Teresa English. She always has great questions.
Hey, Wanda, thanks for sharing with us today. Nice to hear some different stuff about the Cinemark team. I love working with your colleagues and your team there. And we have a long history with you guys. Also cool to hear that you're from South Dakota. I grew up in Sioux Falls, so that's always fun.
Yankton, southeast corner.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And so I wanted to ask, you mentioned creating an appealing environment and a space that you really enjoy going to. And so when you go to movie theaters, what's the element that you still feel is missing to create that environment for you?
I think it's a holistic, I think, taking skill sets from the retail world with visual merchandising, I think it's a huge piece of it. You want to make everything look super appealing. So if you start with the premise that customers are going to the theater and they're treating themselves, right? They're probably not buying the full-size candy bar while they're at the Tom Thumb grocery store line, but they are coming when they come to treat themselves at the movies. So how do we make all of that stuff look like amazing treats, and not just, kind of slam it in a small unit, but light it up and celebrate it and make it joyful. I think our concessions are, I think we've all done an amazing job putting recliners in and fixing our auditoriums and having the best laser projectors and all the things everyone here is down the path doing, right? I think it's that front of the house experience and just making those sights and sounds and that ability to treat yourself feel really special.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, John C. Hall, are you there to unmute? Let's see if he unmutes.
I am. I was not prepared to be called upon, but yes.
Well, that's what I do. Keep you on your toes.
You want me to ask? Hello.
Just say hi if you like. Tell us what you're up to, John.
I would like to say I'm actually in the middle of creating a post about this that I'm going to put up on LinkedIn as soon as we're all done here, because you said a lot of great things, Wanda and Heather. Thanks for keeping this series going. But the one thing that really stuck with me, Wanda, and I'd love for you to elaborate on it, is you said, find a good boss, not a good job. And like, that hit me hard because I've always been looking for the good job, right? And so like, if you would talk a little bit more about that, because I just thought that was the best advice I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, I'll keep it generic because you never know where this video will go. I had a job once where, it was an amazing job, right? I worked at, I don't even know, 8 different companies or more. However, I was never going to be as successful as I knew I could be in that job because I did not have a supportive boss, or a boss who really wanted to believe in the things I wanted to do, or a boss who felt intimidated by me, or any of those things. And when you sense and feel that, you should just move on to a different job. And then, you can go to the next job and you're like, I'm the same person, but why is this completely different? And you have a boss that's just wants your ideas and is, mentoring and says, oh, but what about this? And maybe next time you could do this better, and communicates, right? And is a proactive partner that you were both marching to the same mission. I can't tell you enough, just in my women networking groups of other CMOs in all sorts of different industries, we all talk about that. It's like the biggest mistake I think young people, and even further along in our career, we make. If you find it's not a match when you're there, everyone doesn't get along with everyone. I mean, the world doesn't work that way. There are different people that you connect with on a different lay. And so what I tell people when you're interviewing, how I have changed my process is I interview the company just as much as they interview you. My old boss, Mark Zarati, jokes. He goes, do you want to interview? You want references on me? And I'm like, I do actually. And so he gave me references, and I called 4 of his references about what kind of boss he was. And he's been one of the most amazing bosses I ever had. But you can tell, because he was willing to do that. That was like an indicator to me during that interview process.
Yeah, he bragged on you quite a bit. I remember when I asked him why he chose you, and he went into some detail. I remember I was texting you going, dude, he's really singing your praises.
Great boss.
Thank you, John. That's a great question. And I'm glad that hit home, because one of the things that I love about our interview process is that as our speakers are talking to us, each thing that they say hits a different audience member. And I'm glad that called to you. All right, let's move on. Carrie Dietrich has a question for you, Wanda.
Hi, guys. I'm Carrie Dietrich. I work at Influx. We do digital media platforms. I love that I went after John, because I do have a question, but I first would like to point something out. I don't know, Wanda, if you would remember, but I had met with you at the company I was working with maybe in 2018. And I think you had just joined the industry. And when you came in, you were surrounded with this great team that followed you, I believe, from Neiman's.
Yes.
So for me, I've had 4 different companies I've represented all in this little industry. And it can take years to get to know the team and their strengths and, you know, who you work with best and all those things. So I just thought that was the coolest thing about you, that first of all, they were willing to follow you and that you all gelled and worked so well together. So how did you figure all that out?
Thank you. That's, I'm very fortunate. So, you know, my philosophy is a couple different things. I hire people smarter than me, right? That's the first philosophy. And I hire good people, right? And they have to be driven and passionate and all those great things. And then, you know, I want my people to shine. It's not about what I'm doing or other people in the company. I want them to shine. I want them to do their best and to give them the most exposure. So hopefully they feel that, right? And know that I'm there to support them and I have their back and I'm going to help them in their careers. And not everyone's perfect. They're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, but we learn from those and we move forward. No one's pointing fingers, right? So I was super fortunate. I was able to tap a handful of my lieutenants from Neiman Marcus and bring them over, and we've all just gelled. We've worked together for years. So it's, you know, it's been great. And I joke because one gentleman, every time I bring him over and I want to promote him, he's like, wait, I'm not ready to do that job. I'm like, yes, you are. And I'm going to support you and you're going to be amazing at it. And he does it every time. So I think it's just, you know, I'm very fortunate.
That's great. I think they are amazing, by the way, but I just feel like that's such a in a new company that you already know how to work well together. So my question is on digital media. So COVID has really catapulted us into this online purchasing experience, especially theaters, where 5 years ago people were saying, no, we don't want their phones in here. Now everyone's adopting this. But I feel like we're in a place where we're replacing that personal relationship of the smiling concession person to a online ordering and here you go. And as much as we can use our evil AI and all that in our products and personalize, can you discuss a little bit about that challenge and where you see that going?
Yeah, I think, you know, people's taste change. So one, I believe people want automation and they want it frictionless, but they want it to be human and they want it to be personalized, right? So that's a hard road to figure out. And you can use AI and all sorts of other things to do that. But I don't think in our business, we can lose the personal touch. So if you think about, as all the automation happens, of all the roles that you have left in the theater, what's the role? You know, we want the operations to be procedural and get enough systems in places that taking inventory and cleaning and all of those things that are take a lot of time, fix the systems and the processes and the throughput so they get done with all that faster and it's just easier. We want the time front of house, focused, greeting customers. And if they're ordering and they have a family of 4 and they have 4 Cokes and 4 popcorns and 3 hot dogs, we want our sales associate, our employees to walk with them and help them carry that into the auditorium. I think we can create magic moments with just a smile. I firmly believe that happy, smiling people, if you think about anytime you've gone to a restaurant, anytime you've gone to a movie, anytime you've gone to any experience, if that personal interaction there is human and happy and engaging, it makes your whole night. Sometimes you don't even remember the movie. You remember that human interaction. And I think that's what we have to remember. We're not just about the movie.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to go for Benjamin and then Thomas McCalley. You're next. Okay, pal? Benjamin?
Yes. Yeah, I was wondering actually kind of like, how do you deal with this like changing Hollywood landscape, which feels more and more difficult to forecast? I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of these like tentpole movies, like $200 million, $300 million movies, they are doing like sometimes difficult. Like, for example, I feel like Indiana Jones not doing as well. But then you have something like Sound of Freedom doing really well, which has become almost like a social media kind of hype. And how do you deal with this from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, I think you have to jump on those things, right, that start working really well and capitalize on them and add a bunch of screens and market them more. And then I think we have to think about, as we see the studios settle out, probably still in 24 and 25, and what that slate will look like. We know it's been building back, but with the writer's strike and all of those things, we may have some delays. But, there may or may not, question mark, still be a few holes in there. So what other kinds of things can we bring to our auditoriums that people want to see, and how do we fill those holes, whether it's some of the things that all of you have tried, creator content, concerts, gaming, whatever all those things are. We're going to probably have to expand how we think about the use of our auditoriums.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's very interesting that basically there's a new Avatar game coming up with the new Avatar movie. It could be a really interesting combination of experiences. That's something I really thought about.
Yep.
Thank you, Ben. And where are you in Saudi, Benjamin?
Yeah. Basically working on Gamers 8. So yeah.
So they come in from all over the world, Wanda.
Yeah. It's really, really fun, really interesting. I mean, basically Saudis are kind of like trying to basically build their whole society into a high-tech society, you can say, and they're investing super heavily in gaming and esports. Like the government has set up a fund of $36 billion to kind of like scale everything up, and that's really interesting. And something I've never seen before. Actually, I've never seen before that a government basically pushes sort of like the entertainment sector so much, and that's really interesting. Yeah, so. It's a very interesting time, definitely. A lot of challenges, though. It's very interesting. I mean, kind of like I came here last year, and there's so many things you have to think about from an event perspective that you would normally not have to think about because it's so hot here. Like we had so many TVs and stuff like that dying because it's like 55 degrees here during the day. So it's really, really hot.
Yeah, a little bit like Texas.
Yeah. Welcome to Texas.
Yep. All right. Yes. Thanks, Benjamin. We got a couple more before we end up. Thomas McCalla has a question.
You're muted, I think, Thomas.
Unmute you. Has to unmute. Trying to unmute you.
There we go. There we go. It's interesting you brought that up because international was the question I was going to ask about. Cinemark obviously has theaters in other countries, and the pandemic, etc., created a localization and globalization at the same time with things like this and stuff like that. What are your concepts right now and your perspectives on the whole global world, and how does that help you either pick up things or think about how you market it or anything? How does that impact your life?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it every Monday in our film meetings. We look at what's working in Latin America in our 15 countries, and we say, okay, the films that are working there, sometimes they're distributed earlier, later, it's a mix, right? But we can get a leading indicator from there to our markets here on what we think is working. Like an instance is, Barbie looks like it's going to do really well in LATAM. So for us, we're a Southern chain. We have a lot of, El Paso and some of those areas. So to us, that bodes well that movie's going to probably play well with those audiences too. So, we talk about it every week, what works in one market and another, and vice versa gives us indicators of of how many screens to put movies on and what's going to play well.
Does it also give you ideas on what you want to do in other areas with different perspectives of how things, other theaters are working?
Yes, we do. We in Latin America, we test certain things, having box offices, not having box offices, doing different kinds of loyalty programs. So it's kind of a great testing field. So we have probably 2 or 3 different loyalty programs working there, and then to try to translate. So does that make us want to think about how would we tweak anything we're working on here? So we share a ton of best practices between marketing and film back and forth, and food and beverage, you know, doing a lot of LATAM does a lot of flavored popcorns that are selling really well, right? So let's start testing some of those flavored popcorns in the US. So we trade back and forth a lot.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Gianni, do you want to have a question?
Hi. Yes. Well, it kind of piggybacks off of Teresa's, and I know Teresa is in architecture, and I'm Gianni. Actually, Wanda, I know you from my time working as in-theater marketing director at UAR in Annapurna. I own a creative agency now that supports small to mid-sized theaters for the most part with experiential design as well as marketing. And we've worked with your colleagues on some food and beverage concession products as well. So thank you for your time today. My real question was, I also come from retail and also have studied interior architecture. So I know you worked with Design Within Reach. And my question was really, how does coming from that industry and that line of work, how does it translate? But I think you've answered it throughout the question with Teresa, and it's really about the experience and the way we're making people feel, your wayfinding and things like that. So I think Cinemark does a beautiful job of that.
Thank you. Yeah, and the one thing I have to say about my experience at Design Within Reach, because remember, every place teaches you something, right? There with modern design and working with mid-century designers, and you know, I spent a lot making furniture. We would solve a problem, right, in the marketplace. This is when flat panel TVs were coming out. There were no credenzas to put underneath them. So we went out to young up and coming designers in the Bay Area and got them to, here's the problem. Can you design something, put their name, and then we would help them find sourcing. But what that whole experience taught me is that, and you get this from the modernists, it's form and function. I use those 2 words a lot. So it can't just be great design, it has to have function. Form and function have to go together. That's like my big takeaway from that couple of years I spent at Design Within Reach.
I love that. I love that. And I think you also hit on a point of getting out into the community and really being a community pillar and involving whether it's local artists or local craft breweries and things like that. I think those are ways that theaters can really innovate and exactly. Yep. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question. Who is the lucky person? Jesse, you're there. So you want to unmute Jesse? There she is. Can't hear you, sweetheart. Uh-oh. You're not muted. She's like, oh, it's my moment.
Maybe post the question in the chat.
Oh, she said might not need to. Okay, Sabrina Starr, let's go ahead and grab you. Sabrina. There she is.
Sorry, I'm driving and my phone wouldn't unmute.
Okay, no worries.
Hi, Wanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this. I don't really have a question, but I just do want to say it's really been a pleasure working with you on the NATO Strategic Planning Committee. And I just feel like you offer so much valuable information and insight to that committee and to the industry in general. So I'm happy to know you, and thank you for being here with us.
So kind. Thank you.
All right. Well, y'all, our hour is up. We've taken a lot of Wanda's time today. She's a pretty exceptional person, shared a lot of insight. Again, have put the link to Women in Exhibition. I am challenging you guys to join us, please. And until next time, thanks for being the best part of we, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Enjoy. It's recorded. I'll send you a recording of this, Wanda.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, all.